And it will be interesting to see how the police and immigration officials handle the latest orders. Rita Tinina, KTN News.
All right, that story is also making headlines in, of course, our local dailies, The Standard. And the headline there is Miguna Raila's urgent call to Uhuru. And, of course, we can see a picture of Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta there. Even the Daily Nation, and the headline there is a nightmare. And we can see, of course, a picture of Miguna Miguna. And, of course, even Star. That is also the headline in The Star. So, of course, joining me in studio to dissect some of those issues, next to me is Jkia Mukoba, who is a communications strategist, and next to her is Kefa Ojijo, an advocate. Thank you very much. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
So, do you think the court will obey, do you think they will obey the orders this time round, that is the state, and let him go to court?
It's going to be challenging for that to happen very easily, because if that was to happen, this whole entire drama would not have taken place at the first step. We also have to realize that the government has not been obeying the court order when it comes to matters of Miguna Miguna. This, of course, goes back to how he was deported out of the country to Canada and what is happening now where they want to move him back to Dubai. Yes. So because of a series of, non-compliance to court orders, we would assume that this is something that would happen again. But probably maybe there would be a change because of the volatile situation and the kind of publicity that is taking place with this entire scenario. So let's wait and see what happens today.
All right, Kefa, do you think that they will go this time round?
Thank you. Fortunately, I was at the airport yesterday afternoon, and I saw the contempt at which the officer even treat people. Actually, we're not even allowed to see Miguna. We realized that they refused to accept the orders, and so we had to pin them. I think we pinned them in 3 places conspicuous. Now, the reality is, one of them, I heard one of the officials saying that even if they were supposed to be served with the orders, then according to them, they're not holding anybody by the name Miguna because they've not received any documentation from him or stamped any documentation indicating his name as Miguna. So as far as they're concerned, they're just holding a male adult.
So what
with
about
no
the
identity, with no identity. Now that is where the question comes in. You see, there are some issues in law that are called matters of judicial notice. You don't have to prove them. They are within the public domain. That everybody knows, even them, they know this is Miguna Miguna. It is just a scheme now to try and play around, with the psychology of the law, of the lawyers and of the judges. I think this is wrong. We have seen the government have consistently demonstrated to Kenyans that they do not care about the court orders. Yes. They do not care about the laws of the land. And it is a worrying trend. It is time now that we declare that we have a government that do not respect the laws of the land. And so, as the natural justice states, that if you have a government that do not respect the law, then you as individual, you have no mandate respecting that government. That is what we need to declare now as a nation.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, and of course, on the Standard, there is a quote there, and it says, according to close allies, the former PM reached out to the president of Miguna's case, but there were conflicting accounts as to the president's response. Jkia.
Of course, with the way the situation was going, you would assume that, one of the strategies or one of the ways that Raila would want to deal with this is to reach out to the president. But I don't think that it should have gone that way, because the truth of the matter is that the law needs to be obeyed, so that because the entire thing brings the fact that if you want anything done right, then you have to reach out to somebody for things to be done right. But that is not the way that things should be done. There is a stipulated way according to the law that things need to be done, which is the obvious way that this case was supposed to be handled. So the president doesn't have to come into play where this is concerned. But of course, this is the dynamics of politics that we are seeing coming into play with this whole scenario.
All right, Kefa, do you think the president doesn't have to come into play in this case?
The president has, has to do with everything that's happening to Miguna. He knows actually is the mastermind to what is happening to Miguna, because we know very well that if the president decided just to make a phone call and say, hey guys, we have a court order, let that person in as required by the law, nobody will defy to go against presidential orders, directives. So in this country, presidential directives have become powerful than the law itself. You see, the presidential directives have become superior to the Constitution. That is what is worsening. Now, my only question will be, how did we even get to the handshake, situation? Because then this ought to have been the position of, reform agenda. This ought to have been the position where we see things are changing. We start seeing respect for, for law, respect for court orders. We start seeing people freedom, the media freedom, everybody. We wanted to start seeing that there is a change in how our system is being run. But then you realize that it is not the position. I don't know why President is becoming so personal with Miguna. This is not even now a question of political issue. It is a question of just becoming too personal with an individual. You're taking issues too personal. And then, the behavior is so petty. You see them, how they handle Miguna and how they operate. Then you wonder, why do we even have, institutions then? Can we just declare our country a country of anarchy where there's no laws, where there's no governance? Yeah. Because the police themselves who are mandated to enforce the law have decided to break it outright. So who else should subscribe to those laws? We should not.
All right, and of course you brought in the issue of forces. We saw how he was being handled by over 4 men. And
seven.
Okay, 7.
And
he was just one person.
One individual, escorted by 7 flying squad officers. What for? Was that necessary?
No, it was a bit dramatic. But then, of course, there are chances that they will not obey the court orders. If this doesn't happen, what other options does Miguna have? Jkia, I'll start with you.
It's going to be very difficult for him to have options if they do not obey the court order. The only thing that maybe he could probably do is to constantly insist that he's not going to leave the country. And that means that he would have to stay at the airport for another extended period of time. So for him, the options are very, very limited because what he is against or up against seems to be very powerful than him. Because you see, the only refuge that we all have is the law, that, we have rights as citizens in this nation, and that if anything happens, then my protection is that everything will be handled according to the law. But if that is then taken away from me, then what else is there? What else is left to do? Maybe I can use force, but what is my force against, the force of an entire state? So it's going to be very difficult for him in as far as these options are concerned. Bearing in mind, of course, he has a very, strong legal team that is backing him up, but they don't seem like they've been able to make any breakthrough, up to this point.
All right, Kefa, you were there yesterday. If you can tell us, what are the conditions? Of course, I know you didn't see him, but what circumstances is he in at the moment?
I personally don't even know where he's sitting right now or how he's faring on. Nobody knows.
Is he eating?
I don't know. I don't know. Nobody knows because the media that can help us have already been beaten and chased away.
Yes.
Now we can't see. They are held in, he's being held in Comunicado somewhere that nobody can even reach him, I remember even at around 4, his phone went off. We could not even reach him. I think they're not even allowed to charge his phone. Maybe went off. Now he can't do anything. You see, you wonder why such harsh, treatment have to persist in when we already have a robust constitution where our rights are explicitly a Bill of Rights. You took a whole article, a whole section of the constitution highlighting the Bill of Rights and the rights of individual. And these are non-derogative rights, rights that you cannot take away from individual. They're inherent. And you wonder how this then government decides just to play around with the cards. And let me tell you, right now we can sit down and think this is a Miguna issue as one individual. Tomorrow it will be somebody else. The next day it will be an institution or a body. The next day it will be, a media house. And it will go this way and becomes a trend that all citizens are subjected to the same situation. That is why if this happens to Miguna, every individual ought to stand up and say, enough. This is not the kind of government and leadership we subscribe to. This is not what our law says. We must stand with one of us and declare that what happens to one of us must happen to all of us. Because if we let this trend to continue, tomorrow it will be me, it will be you and everybody else. And then we'll have a country where 2 people sit down and decide what to do with the lives of individuals.
So then what options does he have?
There are 2 options. When you look at the Contempt of Court Act, it gives 2 options. One, it gives that is the penal part of it, where people who disobey the court orders can be punished either by jail or by other means. Again, the second option is it gives you, we call it the purging, it gives you an opportunity to extend what we call the purge of contents, so that it gives you an opportunity to redeem yourself in the process of the mistake you did, to redeem and make sure you reinstate the status quo as things were. Now, as things stand, that was the order which was issued by Kimaru to revert the status quo as it was. But then you realize they have not complied with that. You also realize that even if you were to commit them to jail, then who will arrest them, commit them to jail? Because the police is the body that is mandated, mandated to enforce the law. Then it clearly means that these people will not cooperate. Then what options do we have as